All right, welcome, friends and family. Super excited to be here with you again on this Motivation Monday, Motivate with Elevate. And we're continuing to talk about how to win friends and influence people. Casey and I are just kind of taking this journey together. You know, Casey and I come from a lot of completely different backgrounds in some ways.
Mhm.
My background was home taught to the sixth grade. Um, Through in school, very awkward, very uncomfortable. But my dad was a paver. He did paving and seal coating and tree work. So with that, I always wanted to be nice to people, get along, because I wanted to think maybe one day they may want my dad to pave their driveway. So naturally, I always wanted to get along with people with that thought in mind.
Right.
Now, not to say I didn't have an ego, not to say I didn't get way over in right field some days, but the truth is that was always kind of in the background for me. And KC come from a background of education. You taught at Cumberland High School for 6, 7 years.
Yeah, field of education, and was always academic growing up. Um, I will say that once I determined that a 2.5 GPA is all I needed to get a teaching license in the state of Tennessee, college got a lot more fun.
Yeah.
But I maintained 4.0s and stuff throughout high school and things like that. So yeah, academic background, but small town, both of us,
Right.
small town, and
You were trained in you went to school in Spencer.
mhm.
This is a more like a family field than it was like a school setting in a lot of
Right, in a
ways.
lot of ways, yeah. You
And
knew everybody,
yeah,
knew everybody's mom and daddy.
and I think that to me speaks more of a private school than a public school in a lot of ways.
Maybe so. I've never been in a private school, so I don't really know, but I could imagine it would have some similarities, yes.
I think what I like about our children go to a private school, and one thing I learned from being home taught to the sixth grade was to think for myself. And the conversation you and I had the other day was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
You had spoke on when you're in an educational field
Mhm.
that you're taught to answer a question right or wrong. Can you tell me a little bit how that sounded to you that day?
Yeah, well, it's just I know the conversation come up and we kinda had, um, some things going on with a few agents and it's just a general thing of, when you're in sales of understanding that, sometimes you gotta be outside the box.
Mhm.
Sometimes the guideline is simply a guideline, and sometimes there's, some
Right.
things, all within legal realms. We're not talking about anything shady or
Unethical.
malicious or anything.
Right.
Yeah. But, sometimes, um,
When dealing with people.
yeah, when
When
dealing with
dealing
people,
with people,
there's
there's
a
gray
way.
there.
Right. Most certainly. So, and you'd asked me kind of why I thought, a lot of people couldn't really see that, it's black or white. There is no gray. It's right or wrong. And if you don't do it this way, it's wrong. This is the way it's supposed to work, kind of thing. And my thought was as well, you know, where would you say that we spend the most time at
You'd asked me
growing up?
that, and my
Yeah.
first answer was at home, and then you said I would venture to say that at school.
Between 5 and
Yeah.
18.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That you
you asked
spend.
first, and I kinda missed that a little bit, but then well, for me, I was home taught, so maybe that's
Right.
why I did miss it.
Right.
But the reality is most people are gonna find themselves in school.
Yeah. So from 5 to 18, I feel like we spend the majority of our time, in a school setting.
Mhm.
And in a school setting, for the most part, they teach you there's a right answer to this question, and there's a wrong answer to this question.
Mhm.
There's not a,
Yep.
you
It's
gotta
either
show the
is
work
or
how you
it
get
either
there.
isn't.
Yeah, and there's one process of how to get there. Now, obviously, there's some critical thinking classes and stuff, so obviously there's some exceptions to every rule, right? But for 95% of what you're taught in schools is there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. So there's
Mhm.
a black and white, and I
Mhm.
believe it's just ingrained in us, over time, unless we have some outside experiences like you did
Mhm.
with your dad in the paving work. That's just how we come to believe. And then when you get taught that this is how a contract works, this is how negotiation works, this is how
Yeah.
repair systems work, and all that stuff. When you get taught, this is how these things work, and you have a client that's not really following that mold, you want to kind of say, no, that's not right. Get back over here, and then
Right.
it causes
An offense,
that friction.
a friction.
Hmm.
Yeah. And a brother offended is, if someone once they're easily offended, it's hard to get them back in line.
Yeah.
So going about that in a people centric way
Right.
is a challenge when we've been trained that it's either right or wrong. And one thing, like when I work with buyers or sellers, my main goal is to find out what's right or wrong to them. Basically, what I'm saying is I try to find out their motivation. What are they looking for? What's important to them? And then we center the whole conversation around that. That's what leads us to getting to where they want to be. So in chapter 6, where we're talking about here, how to make people like you instantly, basically, there is one all important law in human conduct. If we obey this law, we shall almost never get into trouble. In fact, the law, if obeyed, will bring us countless friends and constant happiness. Now, who doesn't want that? I know I do. But the very instant we break this law, we shall get into endless trouble. The law is this: always make the other person feel important.
Right.
And one thing that in sales, again, I don't see myself as somebody who controls the situation. I see myself as somebody who helps guide the situation to help them get their purpose. And how do we do that? One thing that KC and I both have learned in life is that we do that by asking questions. I would have asked you right there. I don't want to put you on the spot in front of everybody, all 50 people of you out there watching it.
Yeah. Well, both of them, I got it.
Yeah, but the truth is, how do you make somebody feel important, KC? How do you go about that?
That's a great question, and I don't think that there's a one size fits all answer to that because everybody has different needs. But ultimately, it goes back to what we talked about last week, and that's maintaining our focus on their interest. What makes them tick? What are they interested in? What is their motivation for moving? So, as an example, if somebody's moving to the area, and one of the most important things about their home is that they have a double vanity in the master bathroom because they're tired of sharing one sink, so they can both get ready in the morning time. When you show a house that has that double vanity, you're pointing that out, saying, look at this double vanity in this master bathroom. You're pointing out those things. I mean, that's a part of it, and it's not trickery of any kind. It's just reminding them of, remember, part of what you wanted in this search was this item, and I'm just helping you see this option has that item. May not still be the best option for you. This option does have it, or this option does not have it.
Yeah. And again, they hear you heard them.
Right.
Right. It's obvious that you're paying attention, and all the time, in being in sales now for 18 years, all the time I hear, my agent never asked me any questions. They just put me in a vehicle and said, let's go look at homes.
Right.
So it's always trying to figure out what's their motivation and why. Now, I like this, KC. It says here in this book, little phrases such as, I'm sorry to trouble you. Would you be so kind as to? Won't you please? Would you mind? Thank you. Little courtesies like these oil the cogs of the momentum's grind of everyday life. And incidentally, they are the hallmark of good breeding. So that's saying that, again, we read last week and you pointed it out. I loved it when I read it too, that he didn't know anything about boats. He was just being a gentleman.
Right.
So for a lot of people, I feel like this becomes a challenge. I'm sorry to trouble you. You know what I mean? Because you're really maybe you're not. Maybe you got to trouble that person, right? Like, I can't get my job done unless you do this. But at the end of the day, when we come across like that, like, I'm waiting on you. I'm going to be here all day.
Right.
I'm so sorry to trouble you. Is there anything I could do to help you with this situation right here? Because once you get this done, then I'm going to be able to take care of this over here. And I know you're so busy. Like, when you come across like that to people, I feel like they become much more putty. You know what I mean? Like, I find in life that people want to help you. And if you make your, and I don't know if people see this as a weakness or not. I don't, though. I want to be vulnerable in the areas that I'm not great at, because that's how the whole system's going to move better. You don't really want to put somebody in a role of details that's going to miss a lot of details. So I don't try to hide that fact. I've become very honest about it. But I find that there's people out there that just love to help me, as long as I don't mind to ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I demanded it, I love what Rob Strevel said about my dad a long time ago. He said, I've been working for your dad now for a long time, probably 4 or 5 years. None of those guys really worked for dad for a long, long time. Paving was hard work. You'd burn them out.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, I worked for your dad for a long time, and he's never told me to do anything. He's always asked me. Dad would use words like, do you mind? Would you please? Hey, while you're over there, could you grab that? And so he taught me how to speak
Mm-hmm.
to people in ways that help them move across that finish line a little quicker.
Yeah.
And he was the boss. He could have demanded it. But I think he done figured it out by the time I was out there helping him. If you demand it, you're going to run them off even quicker. It's hard, hot work.
Yeah, there's a story. I believe it's in this book too. I don't recall which chapter it's in, but there's a story of they was trying to get this steer loaded into a trailer, and all these ranch hands were using ropes and cattle prods and forcing, and just couldn't get it in there. And uh, the one of the housemaids come out and uh, grab some hay or an apple
do
or
whatever
something.
that cow liked to eat.
Yeah, and held it in front of the cow and just walked it in just ever so gently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
That people have a natural desire, I think, for that importance, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's deep down. All of us want to have that sense of worth, that pride. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that you can kind of hold your head up with, and I think there's a lot of people that one are deprived of that, and two, there's a lot of people that do the depriving of that in our world today. And
Let's talk about that second
yeah,
part. That's very interesting because I have a wife that would say sometimes it seems a little fake to say these words. And I love my wife. I love Lindsay. She's brilliant. But she'll be honest with some of this, and she'll say that seems a little cheesy to me. You know what I mean? Like, why use words like that when you could just be direct and move the ship a little quicker? So why do you feel like some people deprive? Because I don't think it makes them bad people.
No,
And not at all. I just think maybe it's a difference in the way they see the playing field.
well, I think there's okay. So I think there's two categories of that. I think there's people that do it unknowingly, and there's people that do it willingly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Some people are really jerks.
yes, I mean, well, in all honesty, yeah, I think there's some people
They're purposely just being that way.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that do it unknowingly, and it is a learned nature. I mean, I believe that, um, more often than not, people are raised in a do it because I said so
Home.
home.
I
Yeah,
bet I was.
And I can't say that I'm not guilty of saying those words,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that when we're talking about depriving people of that, I think it's more of it takes longer, right? It takes effort. It takes conscious thinking about the words you're saying. It's not top of mind. It takes
Wow.
reflection to slow down to say, I'm using these words to endear this person, to be able to go further with this person, to be able to help this person. It's a selfless, uh, selfless act to do it, right? Because if you're after yourself, if I'm after what I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking in this way eventually to accomplish what we're both trying to accomplish, right? Which helps both of us. But at the end of the day, I've got you at my forefront of mind when I speak in this manner, and that takes effort. And I think a lot of people don't want to take the time that it takes to do that
That's
effort.
so good. I love that perspective. And so, in your opinion today, you feel that when you're taking time to do that, you're really putting others first.
Yeah, that's the whole nature of the
Yeah.
concept.
That's so interesting. And so for some, putting others first would come more natural. And we do the disc, so we know that's more your amiable personalities. Um, and then for in the disc, you'd be a clerical personality. And so for you, it's more. You probably speak to other people sometimes like you'd want to be spoke to, because you're fairly direct, and that's probably a blessing. I see like you and Lindsay get along really good because you guys can cut to the chase real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be in an ideal world, right? Like things would move faster, probably be more efficient, and so it really logically it makes sense just to be direct.
Well, but efficient and cold, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it could. I mean, Lindsay and I do work very well together, and we have enough respect for each other to know that we're after the same end goal. So
Hmm.
we can be that way and still have uh,
Respect.
a positive environment.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you get people that speak that direct together that don't have that respect for each other, that don't have that mutual war after the same thing
Mm-hmm.
attitude. It gets cold real
Yeah.
quick,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
you
I've
know,
seen that a time or two, and so that's what we want to avoid.
right.
We want to avoid that. Yeah, I'm right. No, I'm right. I can do it this way and do it better than you. And I think that that's a breeding ground that in a lot of competitions in a lot of worlds, especially the real estate world, that could be put out there pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so when you learn how to slow that down, which like you said takes patience, and I think for some people it almost sounds like I don't want to I wouldn't want to be talked to that way, and maybe that's even babying people in a mindset to think that. But at the end of the day, if that's how you get things done and it's appropriate, then I'm all for the do you mind, thank you. And really and truly that should be a heart anyhow, right?
Well, I think this book, the last part of it, influencing people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's how. What influence do I have on somebody when I use words like, "Hey, would you mind to help me with this?" Or, "Hey, I'm trying to get this done, but you're way better at it than I am. Do you mind to give me a
Mm-hmm.
hand?"
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's an influence on
Yes.
that person, and you're giving them that importance, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I need you to help me with this because you're way better than I am. And see, hey, can I have your opinion on this? I respect your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there's more to it than that. I mean, there's actions that follow that. I mean, this is surface. When it talks about using those words, there's actions that go behind that. Because if I say, hey, I need your opinion on this because I respect your opinion, and then you get those opinions two or three times, and you just completely do something opposite
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Then it's like, do you need my opinions because they're the wrong opinions? So like, are you getting me to tell you what not to do, and
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
go the
Yeah.
other way? You know, um,
Yeah. Well,
there's some
I heard
action behind
Simon
that.
Sinek say this the other day, and I'm starting to really enjoy listening to Simon right now. But he said basically, a relationship's a two-way street. If we give you the encouragement and the advice you need to cross that bridge and get on the other side of whatever challenge you're having, and you're not willing to walk your part through, then you've got to understand it's not being friendly, it's not being caring. At that point, they're not willing, and if they're not willing to do their part, then you can't put a lot of energy
Right. Yeah. There,
into
and
it.
that's where, um, that's where benevolence and getting taken advantage of. There's a
Mhm.
fine line between those two things.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, there's always fine lines between a lot of things. I've always said that there's a fine line between confidence and ego, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so
And I've read this the other day, and I forget who it was that said it, but it said, "Be confident in the act." And I think I see you like that. In tennis when we play, you're very confident in the act, but humble afterwards. So you might have hit that ball down the line. You were confident when you got up there. You knew you were going to hit that ball like that, but then afterwards, humble. Man, that actually worked out. That was pretty good. And man, people love that, right?
yes,
And we don't want to be too humble in that process because people can second guess or doubt that. Be confident in the act, humble afterwards.
yeah, most certainly.
Hmm.
So important in this chapter is how to make somebody feel important, and we've discussed, I think, several ways of kind of how to do that. But at the end of the day, um, as my friend Elijah said, is their motivation when it comes to why are they looking to get healthier in 2025? We're coming up on time of resolutions, and
Hmm.
people saying, in 2025 I'm going to do this,
Hmm.
and this is going to happen, and I'm this is where people who own and run gyms, man, they rack up
Hmm.
in this time.
Hmm.
And all these resolutions that's coming through, and Wouldn't it be great if we made 2 or 3 resolutions out of this book?
Yes.
You know, if
Yeah.
I'm 2025, I'm going to make a conscious effort to make the people I talk to feel important.
Yeah.
You
Amen.
know,
And what a
and
gift.
be genuine about it.
Yes. Yeah.
This a common theme in our
Yeah.
messages
Yeah.
is be genuine in that.
And what wouldn't it be a better world if we took time to value other people, to make them feel important? I think that to me that could be some of the greatest joy in life is when we're other centered. I think we find our greatest joy not when we're getting, but when we're giving. So sometimes you just got to try that on to see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel right or it feels a little phony in the beginning, just know that when a caterpillar cocoons and becomes a butterfly, there's a process in that, and that can be very uncomfortable if that doesn't come natural to you. It could feel fake, it could feel phony. That doesn't mean it is, but learning how to do it, like you said, in a genuine way. That's an art, that's a skill, just like a lot of things in life. But thankfully, we have Mr. Dale Carnegie, who's given us the wisdom how to cross that bridge. And so try it, and see if you don't get back better results throughout 2025. We appreciate you all taking time to listen today. Have a wonderful rest of your week. If we can do anything to help, please let us know. Thank you.